All right, everybody. I said my name's Terry Fender. I'm here from Lynchburg, Ohio, ARBA judge number 609. They asked me to talk on showmanship today, and this is something that I really put a lot of faith and importance in. Because, you know, at fair time, most of the fairs are in the dead of summer, and even the best rabbit can go into a bad molt, and there goes your hope of grand champion. Where showmanship, though, you know, that's not going to go into a molt, and it's something that the young person's done themselves from studying, from handling the rabbit. It's nothing that, you know, it can be bought. It has to be earned. Now, sometimes showmanship does vary from county to county or even state to state or at the ARBA level. So some questions, you know, we do need to direct back to your 4-H advisor, your county extension agent, just to make sure, you know, what we're telling you today is correct for your county. But in the big picture, things are, you know, we look at things pretty much the same. Maybe we weigh them a little different or the process is a little different. But what we're looking for in showmanship is the ability to handle the rabbit just like the judge does. Today when you was watching your rabbits being judged, pretty much the showmanship contestant will be checking the same things that the judge was. And also there is a little bit of a knowledge aspect. Now those questions can vary on the breed specific, maybe some general questions, some nutrition questions, and again, that's usually up to the judge what they're going to use. But what I always tell, you know, when I had a 4-H club, when I was an advisor, and when I put on these clinics to the young kids, several things you want to study. One of them, of course, is if you're a 4-H member, study your 4-H project book. There's so much information in there that you need to go over. Sometimes we might think, well, maybe that's a little simple, but still, sometimes the simplest things may be the hardest if we forget to look at them there. The other thing is, of course, the ARBA standard of perfection. That's what every breed standard is listed in. That's what the judges judge by. So, you know, we're not going to ask you hard questions like the judge, you know, took on their judge exam, but, you know, maybe know the varieties of your breed. Maybe, you know, what's the most important? Is it body type? Is it color? Is it markings? Something like that. It doesn't hurt to, you know the question, you know, to know the weight of the animals as well. But, you know, that gives you an idea of some of the things that we're looking for. Now, the ARBA website does have a sheet listed on there that's used at the ARBA convention, and that's at arba.net. You can go to the youth part of that and find that. Now, for most of the county fairs that I work at, I really don't run into a lot of judges that use that on the county level, but I still like to recommend it because it does break down certain sections, the handling, what we're looking for, the questions, I believe maybe even a few points on the animal itself, the appearance of the person. So by looking at that, it gives you at least an idea of, you know, what's expected of you. So I'd really definitely recommend you going on the ARBA website to get that. Now we talk about, you know, the appearance of the person. When I'm doing it on the county level, I don't put a huge amount of points on the appearance. I'm more concerned how you handle your rabbit, if you know the questions, if you're able to keep the rabbit under control. However, it doesn't hurt, and some counties do require, you know, certain dress attire. So it's always a good idea to go in with long pants on. I know a lot of the fairs take place when it's 100 degrees out, but still, you're not in front of the judge that long. So wear long pants, long sleeves is always a good idea. I like, you know, either a show coat or an apron. Just makes you look professional. You know, if you go up there in shorts, maybe flip-flops, a variety of piercings and everything, that's not putting a real professional look on when we're doing showmanship. So for that little bit of time that you're in front of the judge, it's a good idea to just spiff up a little bit and, you know, have that professional look. Now, one thing that I've always had trouble with, and I still work on it today, is eye contact. When I work with these young kids, I like to see the young person look at me right in the eye. I know several years ago I had this one young lady in the class. She was probably not going to place the top 1 or 2, but every time I looked at her, it was almost scary. The eye contact right in your eye there. And that gave her those extra few points that helped her step up a little bit. Also, just a casual, not the casual attitude, but just a professional attitude. Sometimes we might want to call it polish or professionalism, but just go up there and show an air of confidence. Now, I'm not talking cocky, but, an air of confidence like you know what you're talking about. Because sometimes I've seen two young people, they answer both of them answer the questions right. For instance, if I'd say, name 3 varieties of the Silver Martin. One person might say, well, black, blue, chocolate. They're right. But the next person looks me right in the eye and he is black, blue, chocolate. Both of you got the answer right, but there's that little bit of the eye contact as well as just the polish, the performance of it there. And a lot of that comes just with practice. Sometimes the younger people, it takes time when you're starting out with showmanship as just a young person. That was me 2 or 3 years ago, I think. But, it takes a while. You take those little baby steps. And I always tell the young people, if you don't do what you thought you really wanted to, every year's a step. So take what you learned at the fair this year, watch the other kids around you. You'll see some good things, and you'll probably see some bad things. But take all that, apply it to next year, and every year we hope to step a little bit more. And as we gain more confidence, we'll probably get a little more of that polish where we look them in the eye, we answer the questions. That's what I like to see. Now, one thing sometimes maybe we don't talk about enough is also keeping your rabbit under control. Now, some county fairs I do may have a bunch, say a dozen young people lined up at the same table. Others may do it, one young person at a time. They'll bring the young person up. They'll do their presentation, move on, and the next young person. Well, that's not too much of a trouble there. However, like some counties, you have 12 young people lined up at the same table. That's where control the rabbit really comes into play. Because if I'm down here talking to one young person, the New Zealand at the far end of the table comes running down here and interrupts this person, well, that person's probably going to get a little deduction because they didn't keep control of the rabbit. And also control the rabbit when they're turning the rabbit over. Like, we turn it over like Al was doing a while ago, checking teeth, toenails, sexing the animal. Every time, even the judge, if you watch us, or every once in a while, there's going to be that rabbit that just causes problems and doesn't want to flip over too well. Well, if the person still acts confident, if that rabbit kicks back over, and then the young person gets all flustered and runs their presentation, well, unfortunately, yeah, we probably will have to, deduct some points there. But if the young person has trouble and the rabbit kicks over, but he just goes right back like nothing ever happens, turns the rabbit back over, well, that shows me confidence and poise. So we're probably not going to deduct a whole lot because that young person just went back on and didn't let it bother him or her. So I think we've probably covered most of what I wanted to talk about. Was there any more questions for me on showmanship? Okay, well, yes, David.
When you're thinking about the top couple kids, what is that big difference between like the overall champion, a class winner, and second place?
Okay, David was asking, what's the difference between maybe the top person and maybe the one that's down just a little bit more? Well, a lot of times it's, they are both answering the question similarly. They're handling the rabbit similarly. However, at least when I'm judging, it comes down a little bit to the poise and the confidence level. Because like we said a while ago, 2 young people may answer the question correctly, but one's looking down here, one's answering the question looking at me right in the eye. And sometimes that little bit of polish, I've ran into that in several county fairs. 2 very good young people, but one young lady might have just a little bit of a confidence problem. The other's looking at me right in the eye answering every question. So a lot of times that's what I see right there. As we step down a little bit, you can tell some of the young people that's put the time and effort in it, studying a lot, and others that have just waited to the last minute. But hopefully that answered a little bit. Was there any other questions? Okay, so yes. Okay, well, some counties and some states, they're 4-H book shows, but if you do like the ARBA standards, like being a right-handed person, I'll grab the ears. You're not really scruffing the rabbit, but you're getting your hand in just enough to control the rabbit and turning it over, and maybe your left hand is taking some of the pressure off on the hindquarters, so that's a good way. But again, like we said when we started, some counties, some states may be a little more specific. So that's one reason I always remind everybody to check with their county extension agent or even their club advisor just to be sure. But I did want to recap just a few things here. Remember, study for showmanship. It's not something you wait until the night before. It's something you do weeks or months in advance. You go to the shows, watch other breeds being judged, because you may have, say, a Netherland Dwarf, but it doesn't hurt to stand and watch maybe the Flemish Giants being showed for a little while. You're not going to become an expert, but you'll pick up a few pointers that might help you. So you study ahead of time, your 4-H book, your ARBA standards, study with your friends. They might have another breed that you don't have, so you might learn something about their Palomina. They might learn something about your Polish. So work with them like that. Also, practice handling your rabbit like the judge. And this is something you're going to be an expert at, immediately. But, practice after you do this several times over the weeks, over the months, you'll see some confidence coming and your ability will get better. Dress professionally, try and wear your long pants. I know when on the county fairs, when it's hot out, I'm judging in shorts. However, I'm there all day and the young person's there just for a few minutes. So it's a good idea. Wear your long pants, wear your long sleeves, maybe a show coat or an apron. And remember the final points, the contact, the eye contact. Don't talk to your neighbor beside you. He may be talking to you, but odds are as soon as you say something back to him, that's when the judge is going to look at you. So don't talk to anybody else. And remember, go to the ARBA website, run off a copy of the ARBA showmanship form there. Even if the judge doesn't use it, I think it's a great way to start. It will give you an idea of what's expected from you. And plus, if you're going to ARBA convention, that's what you're going to be graded on. So David, was there any more questions? Alrighty, guys. Thanks for having me, David. Enjoy.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, everyone. It's David with Rabbit Show. Have you learned something in this video so far? Hit that like button so that you continue to see our newest videos.